Last spring, I started some loofah and I had tried to grow it for a few years, and while this attempt was a little tricky, I did get a small vine to push out 3 loofahs that I was able to get pollinated. I did hand pollinate in the summer. I think it was about late July or early August, just to make sure. I might not have needed to because I did see some bees hanging around the flowers, but I didn't want to take it to chance that they would not get pollinated. So then I just left them on the vine as long as I could. One got fully dried, so I removed it, and then towards the late fall, the vine started to look really bad, and just before Christmas, we had a lot of rain, and I saw the 2 remaining on the vine were starting to yellow. I had really wanted to leave them on the vine longer, but I had seen people harvesting them when they were green, and even though it seems to be a bit more work, I think I will favor harvesting and processing loofah when it is green. I'll show you my experience and then explain why I prefer harvesting them when they are green, even if it is more work. So here we have my 3 loofah. The one on the left was the one that was dried on the vine, and I put it in my shed, but I think there was some humidity, so the outer layer of it has some light mold on it, but underneath, hopefully it won't be moldy. The one in the middle looks a bit moldy, but it also has a weird wonky shape. But I brought this one and the larger one inside, and I thought I could just dry them that way. But then when I realized the weird shape one was starting to look like it was rotting, I decided I needed to get the larger one processed quickly. And when you harvest a loofah before it is dried, the sponge part is still formed as long as the skin looks a bit yellow. You just don't want a super young loofah, but I know this one had been on the vine for a long time and was the same shape and size for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and process this one. I cut the end off and you can see the inside and the seeds, and I'll now cut off the other end and start peeling the skin off and try to get the seeds out. It is very fibrous. It feels like I am trying to peel a very tough banana, and it's also very slimy, which is why I am wearing these gloves. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep peeling away. Okay, here we are, all peeled. I'm going to go ahead and start shaking the seeds out. That took a minute. If the loofah was dried, I think the seeds would have probably just come right out, no problem. I felt like I had to kind of squeeze the seeds out towards the end, and I am sure there are still some stuck inside, but I got the majority out, and I'll collect and dry these seeds later. But hey, this is a nice looking loofah, and I can probably slice this up into a few nice pieces. And before I cut into this loofah, I'm going to go ahead and give it a nice rinse because there was a lot of sap on the inside all over the loofah. So I want to try and get as much of that sap off as I can. All right, I got a good wash, and now I'm going to cut it up into slices, and I'll put the pieces in this basket and rinse them again after they're cut. I should have brought out a cutting board or something because I don't want to cut too hard against my slab outside here, but I also think this Hori Hori knife, for once, might not be the right tool. This tool is so versatile, but for this I need something sharper. Let me see if I can just rip the rest of this part off, but even ripping it or tearing it is difficult. I just hacked this up badly, so I definitely need to go grab some scissors or something that isn't serrated so I can get a smoother, cleaner cut. All right, I have these little garden snips, so these should work better. It is still a little tough, but it is definitely easier. Oh wow, there are still a lot of seeds in here. I don't know why I am so surprised at how fibrous this is, but at least it'll probably be pretty durable then. And here we go. This is a pretty nice looking slice. There are still some seeds inside, but I'll focus on getting the rest of this cut up first. Okay, I got some pretty nice pieces here. I can always cut them up a bit more, but I'll take these inside and give them a rinse and make sure I get all of that sap off and then finish processing these pieces. I did collect all of those seeds from outside. I am going to spread them out on this paper plate. I need to make sure they are spread out a little bit more to dry, but just look at all of these seeds from that one loofah. This is a lot, and it's crazy to think that I'll be sowing these seeds soon because loofah is a long game plant. On average, it takes about 120 days to grow. I have my loofah slices rinsed off, and I tried to remove as many of the seeds as I could, but I also didn't want to try too hard and mess up the inside, but I'll get them out when they are a little more dried. So to dry them, I am going to put them in the oven for a bit. You could air dry them, but I really don't want to take the chance of them getting mold, so I just want to dry them in the oven, just at a really low temperature. I'll put them in the oven at about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'll start with just 5 minutes and keep an eye on them during those 5 minutes to make sure they don't burn. It's been 5 minutes, but I'm going to put them back in for another couple of minutes because they still felt a little wet, but overall they weren't too bad. This is about after 8 minutes total, and they feel pretty dry. They got a tiny bit browned, but that's okay. They aren't burnt, and I will just let them sit on this pan overnight before storing them just to make sure they are 100% dry. So this was pretty exciting. After all of these years of trying, I can finally say I grew my own sponges, but let's go outside and open up the other two. This is the loofah that was fully dried. I dabbed the outside with some rubbing alcohol to get the mold off just so that I didn't potentially spread spores around, and it cracked open pretty easily and it looks like the seeds will come right out. The sponge looks good and clean, so I'll just cut it up into pieces later. And now let's open this wonky looking one that seems like it's kind of gone south a bit. And yeah, this one doesn't look great inside. It might be okay, but given by how yucky and moldy it is on the outside, I don't feel like doing the work. It's also so small and again, oddly shaped, so I don't feel like I'd get much out of this one anyway, and I had two others that were pretty good, so I'm happy with those, and I am okay composting this one. Going back to why I think I prefer harvesting loofah when they are younger versus fully dried on the vine is, while I think it's nice to let them dry in the vine and save yourself some work, I really like the assurance that they are fully dried, and if the vine is looking bad and you want to use that garden space to grow something else, then it's worth it to just remove the loofah once they are mature enough and dry them yourself. And even if they look fully dry, maybe on the vine they could still have developed mold inside. And even though you could wash them really well, I would really just prefer to take matters into my own hands and get them when they are still somewhat fresh and oven dry them. If you haven't tried growing loofah yet, whether you want to grow them for the sponges or the younger squash to eat, definitely give it a try. It does take a long time to grow, but besides making sure the flowers get pollinated, they are pretty low maintenance, and why pay a few dollars for a sponge at the store when you can just wait several months and use up water and other resources and grow your own natural sponges? Jokes aside, it is a neat plant to grow, and I think everyone should grow it at least once.